What do you uniquely stand for? The day you're no longer here, what will you be remembered for? And you could kind of uplift it to purpose. But it could also be that she was the one that never missed a spelling error in a 47-page legal document. Because every small detail matters. She's unreasonable about perfection, and that's what she stands for.
You are listening to episode 5 of The Leadership Pulse with me, Marlinie Ramsamy, CEO, Franklin Covey South Africa. And today we are with Jeanette Marais. Some leaders drive results, others inspire change. Jeanette Marais does both fearlessly. As the trailblazing CEO of Momentum Group, she's not just leading a financial powerhouse, she's redefining leadership itself. With over 30 years at the helm of industry giants, Jeanette has transformed businesses, turned setbacks into successes, and shattered ceilings as the first female CEO of a listed life insurance company and asset management group in South Africa. But her leadership isn't just about strategy, it's about people. She believes real success is built on trust, human connection, and purpose-driven impact. A visionary, a game changer, a force of nature in business and beyond. This is Jeanette Marais. Welcome. You are with Marlinie Ramsamy on The Leadership Pulse on episode 5, and I'm here this morning with Jeanette Marais, CEO, Momentum Group. Jeanette, what an absolute privilege to have you in that chair. I cannot begin to explain the elation that I felt after the request from my office to say, well, could we have Jeanette on our Leadership Pulse? So I want to say thank you so very much for accepting our invitation and for being in this conversation with us.
It's my absolute privilege and pleasure, Marlinie. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here. I really look forward to the conversation.
Oh, wonderful. Jeanette, our listeners, part of the Leadership Pulse objective is to be able to give our listeners, other leaders, we call it the pulse very specifically because we want to know what is the leadership pulse like in South Africa, in corporate South Africa, and indeed in various landscapes in South Africa. I've looked through your illustrious career, 30 amazing years. And a lot of times, when people look at you now, 30 years into this career, they don't really think about all of the work that had gone in beforehand. At Franklin Covey, we have habit 2 is begin with the end in mind.
Which is, by the way, my one, right? It's my favorite.
Really?
I absolutely live by that.
Well, absolutely.
But I'm sure we'll get to that at some point.
Yes, so this is where I'd like to start. Tell us a little bit about Jeanette. How have you come to be here? And perhaps that alignment that you see with habit 2 as we talk about, beginning with that end in mind. So over to you.
So start far back. Okay, let's start far back. I grew up on a farm in the Free State. I'm the oldest of 5 children, 4 girls and a boy. Our brother's right in the middle. He's the luckiest man alive, I still think, because, he had sisters that just sorted everything out for him all the time. I'm the oldest. And, humble beginnings. I grew up in a home where my dad, he's third generation on the farm. There was never anything else but you finish matric and you come to the farm and you're a farmer. And it's also what he wanted to do. My mom, actually in the late 50s, early 60s, she had a degree. She was a teacher, home executive kind of, that degree she did. She was a teacher, And then she gave up her career when she met my dad. She gave up everything, even her little Mini Cooper. And she came to a farm and, she became a mother and a farmer's wife. And, it completely changed her life. We'll get back to my mum because, I think a lot of where I am today, actually, I can relate back to her and sometimes her struggles and so forth. Anyway, but no role models in business, no role models in, I suppose, in town. Who was it? The bank manager was maybe the guy with a career, the important person, Yes. There wasn't any. We were just a farming community.
Right.
And I guess that's kind of how I grew up. If you ask my mum, she will say, Jeanette somehow always had a goal. She always knew where she was going. She never took on anything fly by the seat of the pants. She always said, if I do this, I want to be best at it. If I do that, I want to be sure that I master it. So I guess in a way, it was in the way in which we were brought up. Yeah. My dad always taught me and us. In fact, when I was born, I think, all farmers always hope that their first child is a son. Wasn't. He had to have 3 before he got his boy. But my dad always said, there is nothing that boys can do that girls can't also do. Wow. How wonderful is that? For like late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. For a father then to say, my child, everything and anything you want to do, you can. Don't let anyone ever tell you that this is for boys and that is for girls. And in a way, it's always been like that for me. There was never a challenge that said, oh, but okay, that's kind of not for girls. So in a way, I think, maybe that's one of the things that I carry with me and that I've always carried with me. From there, I actually went to a small school, tiny school, Reddersburg, the little town closest to us. I was there from, then it was sub A, today grade 1, to matric. I did my matric there. I always did really, really well at school. I wanted to go to Stellenbosch to study there. My dad said it's way too far from home. Koffsies is it. I got a bursary. I studied there and my career started. And I guess, we can talk a little bit more about some of that detail.
Yes.
But maybe for me, that is very significant, is that my first job was actually at Momentum. It wasn't even the Momentum Group. It was a much, much smaller firm. But it started here, in this place. And I came full circle. And, 7 years ago, I rejoined the group. And this will be my last job.
I love that idea of coming back full circle and the contribution that the people around us makes, right? And, when we were doing our prep a few minutes ago, I was talking about the alignment that I've been listening to throughout all of the platforms where I hear you. And one of the things that Stephen Covey talks about in his early works, the 7 Habits, is I'm the product of my choices, not my circumstances.
Absolutely. It's a life philosophy of mine.
Yes, and
Absolutely.
What I'm hearing you describe is that. Talk to us about some of those choices that you've had to make along the way as you crafted your career. What I heard you say also is that nothing by chance, right?
Yes.
So that means you design your life deliberately, intentionally. Your life is not where it is by default.
Well, and look, sometimes life happens.
Right.
But I just believe that even in those moments, you have a choice how you respond to it. You have a choice how you move on from it. And you have a choice how much of your precious energy you're going to spend in the past versus closing the door, learning from it, closing the door and moving on. In a way, and I'm not really answering your real question, I'll get to that now, but I think I can truly say that I live a life with no regret. I have no regret about choices I've made because every single one of them, rightly or wrongly, was either something that helped me grow or something that I could learn from and make sure I never do again. And I think there is a little bit of that. I regret in the moment or after a day, many, many times, that I may have said the wrong thing or I had the wrong tone of voice when I did. I drive home every single night of my life and I go, what went right today and what could I do better? What should I never do again? And I think it's that in the moment you deal with these things and then you try and move on.
Yeah.
But back to choices, I guess, of course we make so many choices, but often people ask me, you didn't start here. Many people do that. They start at a company and 40 years later or 50 years later they retire from there. Mine was not like that. If you count Momentum twice, I think it was kind of 6 places that I've worked. Those were deliberate choices. And the choice always came for me for 2 reasons. The one is when I start to wake up in the morning and I think, I'm just not learning anything anymore. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I'm not learning, I'm not growing. Now, change is hard, but change has never scared me because I've always realized that the worst, the opposite of that is living in the comfort zone. I hate the comfort zone.
Yeah.
The comfort zone is a very comfortable place. No growth takes place there. You become complacent, you become mediocre, you become, just not passionate about what you do anymore. You lose that edge, that magic. So that's one of the things. And always where I was, I would then have a conversation to say, I need more, I need to grow, I need an opportunity. I have one in mind. And often people would say, oh, no, never for you, or whatever. And then it's my choice what I do with that.
Yes.
I could just plod along, or I could say, well, then. And the one amazing thing that is uncanny, I've never had a CV in my entire life. I was right at that point in time. I received a call from a headhunter who said, listen, there's an opportunity. Yes. Now, I received 10 times more of those calls that I sometimes took just because I thought, okay, let me go see what's out there. Or other times because, I would just say no because the company I had a certain view on and so on. But even that was deliberate.
Yeah.
I vowed that I will never move sideways. And I vowed that where I go, the most important decision was not the role, the title, the what. It was to match values. Okay. Because if you end up in a place, and don't say I always got it right. Sometimes I went places and I thought, oh, whoa, this is just not what I believe in. It's not what I subscribe to. It's just the whole place is just not what values are not aligned.
Correct.
Those are the worst career decisions to make and to end up in. Now, when you then in and you remain in, you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah.
To just not give up and walk away because, suddenly you feel that you've made a mistake.
Yes.
But to stick it through and see what you could learn and grow. And I guess that's just how I've gone about it. My husband, whom I've met, now 25 years ago, have always said to me, I just don't understand you. Wherever you are is always the best place. And you're always happy. And I'm like, but it's because it's true. Because if I don't believe it, I shouldn't be here.
Correct. Yeah. I keep going back to you are a living example of the work of Covey in action. I swear, we are speaking about how you have evolved and grown, and every time something comes out of your mouth, I'm thinking like, that is just so aligned.
I feel terrible that I don't know more about the work you do, actually, when you say this.
I promise you, it's like everything in our world happens twice, right? First, mentally, we have a mental picture of what we want our life to look like and what are the choices are, and then we have the physical manifestation of
making
that.
It happen.
Exactly. And, part of habit 1, be proactive, is what? I take my weather wherever I go. So everywhere I go, yes, the sun shines and it's beautiful and it is going to be the best because I've chosen that's what my day is going to be like.
And life is not so short. Often people say life is short. I always have the opposite view that life is too long to be deeply unhappy, to be deeply demotivated, to be in a place that is toxic or it's bad for you.
Yeah.
Life is too long.
Yeah.
Make a choice and move to a place, but only you can do it.
Correct.
No one else can make you do it. No one else can, yes, you know, an opportunity can come along and consider it, but change is hard. But for me, change has become one of those things that I have to do in order to change my circumstances or get closer to this dream I have of who I can be.
Yeah.
And often I was the only one who thought that I could be something more or something different. And
Yes.
But that's just, it's up to me to prove it or to do it or to go and make it happen.
And, you know, Sheryl Sandberg has this beautiful quote, and, you know, as you're speaking, it's reminding, these things are coming flooding to my mind. And she said, you know, when somebody asks you to take a seat on a rocket, you don't ask, where do I sit? You take a
get
seat
on the rocket.
Yes.
Exactly.
And what I'm hearing you say is you've had these multiple opportunities to get onto the rocket and move ahead. But we also know that we are in an environment, and you have been at the forefront of an environment that has not been very kind to women. And, you know, the rest of us look at you and think like, well, Jeanette's up there, she's doing it. So 2 things on my question for you, Jeanette. 1, how have you managed to navigate all of those difficulties and those challenges where people have said to you, like you've just said now, you know, no, that's not for you right now. How have you navigated through that? And as you say that, what would be the 3 things perhaps that could be takeaways for other women and other leaders as well, men or women for that matter, that aspire for more than where they are right now?
Well, so stay back. I started here in the early 90s. The financial services industry, there were no women. Well, there were women, but they were in the typing pool or, you know, secretaries and admin people and so forth. There just wasn't any women. So I knew when I walked in that it could be difficult. I had no idea. I cannot tell you how many times in my life I was asked to pour the tea or to not sit at the table, but, you know, sit on the outer side. Or how many times when I got up way back when I was quite young to do a presentation, I even had men. Literally, I was the reason they drove 50 kilometers to a venue to come and see a Momentum launch. And I get up and they walk out. Literally, I've not said a word. I've only been introduced and they walk out. Or to take the notes, you know, all of those things. Now, that was the first and the biggest lesson that I learned was how I respond to that is my choice.
Yeah.
And my attitude will make the difference between whether I make it or not. Why? I could stand there and be completely disencouraged, look up, look around and say, women does not make it in this place or in this industry.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on. There are no women. There's going to be one that's going to have to be the first. And I'm going to make sure that I'm ready that day they need it. I will work harder. These things I'll brush off. I will pour you the best cup of tea you've ever had, but it will be the last cup of tea I ever pour for you. But the attitude, the place from which it comes, think about it. They were unaccustomed to having a woman, I was very, very young, with an opinion around them. The problem was not that they thought that women was inferior. They didn't really know what to do with me.
Yeah.
So what do you naturally do? You place it in the box that you grew up with, the unconscious box that says, women, mothers are the nurturers, they the carers, they the one that, you know, give you a little kiss when you have some. They're not the ones with the voices and the opinions and the strong and the what. So I realized very early on that my attitude was going to make or break whether I was going to get any opportunities. So I spent zero energy on what happened.
Yeah.
I moved on and I said, how do I become the best person for when they need someone? Because I was not going to be the one that got the job because I was the only woman around. I needed to know for myself at least that I deserved it. So that was an attitude thing. And I think that attitude made all the difference. All the difference. Secondly, not in one of the businesses that I've worked did I ever have a woman more senior than me. I've never reported to a woman in my entire life. I was the one. I had to trailblaze. I had to walk into that room and deal with even the unconscious biases and the prejudices and everything.
Wow.
I had to find a voice, and I always carried it. I've got a huge sense of kind of responsibility. I suppose oldest children always have that. But I always felt responsible to make sure that I could trailblaze so that more women could follow in my footsteps. And if it was a tiny bit easier for them, then I've done what I set out to do.
Right.
So in a way, I was always quite aware of it, but aware of it in a positive way. It was just, okay, know that that's how it's going to be. Know how you're going to deal with it. Move on swiftly. Don't spend your energy on it. Spend your energy on finding a voice. Spend your energy on be better prepared than anyone in that room. And you know how it is in the beginning. You sit in a meeting and you have something to say and you think, oh no, I don't think I should. And then a guy says it and you go.
Oh,
And then next time, you just venture.
Yes.
And you know what we do as women? We say, I think this might be a stupid question. Stop that. No, have you ever heard a guy say, I think this is a stupid question? Why would you do it? Why would you diminish your own voice just because you're uncertain? Go in there. And you know what? If it's a stupid question, no one's going to tell you that anyway. And 99.99, 120% of the time, it's not a stupid question. So I guess that for me was always, it's an attitude. And always in the back of my mind, my dad said, there is nothing that boys can do that girls can't do. I said, there is nothing that boys can't do that girls can't do better.
Yes.
That's my attitude. That's what I try to do. And it's not a feminist thing. It is just simply, here I am, I've got something to offer, and it's up to me to find my voice to do it. The second part of your question is just how to help others. What are the things that you've learned? Look, maybe I've answered it in a way. I would just also maybe add one thing, and this is specifically to women. I am married, and I have a life and a family and other things as well. The one thing that I had to overcome very, very quickly was my own sense of guilt. Because when I'm at work, I feel guilty that I'm a bad wife. When I'm at home, I think, oh, my boss thinks I don't care or I don't, and what. Get over it. Just get over it. When I am at home now, I am the best wife I can be. And if I have to fit all of that into a day, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And when I'm at work, I'm at work. It doesn't say that when my phone rings and there's a crisis at home that I don't take it or deal with it because you have no choice to do it. But stop the guilt. The guilt is the thing that holds you back.
Yeah. I love that. And, you really have hit on a very sensitive area when it comes to women, because it is about that guilt that, I don't, maybe I'm not a good enough mom, or maybe I'm not a good enough wife, or I'm letting my career down, or I can't get that job because I have an obligation to work. And once again, I keep saying this, and you will hear me say this throughout this interview, that it seems as if you have read all of our work, because Find Your Voice is the 8th habit. That's what Stephen talks about. He talks about finding that inner voice and helping others find theirs. And that's what I appreciate of this conversation. 2 things. One is, when we sent the request out, you were not, in your hubris, well, I am the CEO of Momentum and so nobody talked to me. None of that. And here we are talking about how you have been a great example for other women. Here's what I find when I engage industry leaders, is they have a tendency of emulating the leader above, which is what you want to do, right? You want to set a great example. But what I find in women leadership is that they want to be a man in women's attire leading a role. And my question reverts back to you around, as you've been leading, you have never reported into a woman. How is that different? And what would be the advice to other women in leadership that's leading other women? You know, how do you lift them as you are rising? You know?
I mean, this is an amazing question. May I go back to the 8th habit?
Of course.
So, that find your inner voice and help others find it. And of course, that is about your, that kind of one thing that you stand for, that you are great at. I call it find your magic and protect it at all cost. I have an example of one of the previous firms that I worked at, that when it actually came to what I thought was going to be the job of my life, and the final day, the day in which they basically told me I'm not getting the job, they said to me, we would have given it to you if only you could be more like us. And it threw me. I mean, it almost destroyed me. And I said, what does that mean? Be like us. Who's us? I'm part of the us. I worked here 10 years. And they said, if you could stop challenging, if you could just relax a bit, if you could just come to work and not just always want to make everything better and challenge and change. And I left. I mean, they told me I didn't get the job. And I went home and I was shattered. And Johan, my husband, looked at me. He listened to this and he looked at me and he said, Jeanette, are you trying to tell me that you were willing to give up the Jeanette magic just for a job? It would have destroyed you. The one thing that makes you this amazing person, an amazing leader, you were willing to give that up for a job? Are you mad? And I really had to think about it, and I thought, you only have one piece of magic that is magic to you. It's your unique thing you bring to the table. If you're willing to give that up, you've got nothing. You might have a title, you might have a CEO thing, but there will be nothing left of you. Yeah. And I almost gave that up. Yeah. And when this came about for me, what for me was just, and this being the 7 years I had to work here before I even, got this job, was coming to a place where what they wanted was the Jeanette magic. What they wanted was the exact unique thing I bring to the table, and embrace that. I've never felt for one day that I was too much, that I was too unreasonable about excellence, that I was driving too hard, because it's exactly what this organization needed and wanted from me, at that point in my career and in the life stage at which the company is at. Right. And I think when that happens, it's like a good marriage. It's just you marry the best of the best. So I've so many times have said to people, everyone, not just women, what do you uniquely stand for? Yeah. The day you're no longer here, what will you be remembered for? Yes. And you could kind of uplift it to purpose. Yes. But it could also be that she was the one that never missed a spelling error in a 47-page legal document. Because every small detail matters. She's unreasonable about perfection. And that's what she stands for. Whatever that is, figure that out. But know that it will make people uncomfortable. Because the better you are at something, the more you live it, the more passion you put into it, some people will go, oh, that's too much. She's too tough. She's too hard. She drives too hard. Her targets are too high. People will experience that. But do not give it up for the sake of shrinking yourself to make others more comfortable.
Nice. And
again, I've done that. You've asked me a whole question and I've kind of zoomed in on one thing. Yes. But I think that is when the true kind of magic happens. So yes, I never had, women leaders, but I have never tried to be like a man or live like a man. I am proudly female. I'm proudly feminine. I believe everything matters. From my shoes, how I'm dressed. I often stop young girls at the turnstiles and say, did you look in the mirror this morning? And I do it kindly. I'm not doing it to break you down. I'm just saying, if you you come to work. There's 4,000 people working here. Yeah. You're going to sit in a meeting. If you don't even take your appearance seriously enough to put in that little bit of extra, so you can hear, I believe the small things matter. In fact, I say raindrops make oceans. Everything matters. Yes. Being where I am today was not one big jump. Correct. It was the result of 30 years of building small things relentlessly. Yes. Always. That for me is what makes the magic. And I am probably the most un-CEO-like CEO there's ever been born. Because I'm not a CEO. I was trusted to lead, to be the leader of an amazing organization. Yeah. What does that title mean? Yes, it's important when they, put it on TV or, put it up to show. But I'm still the same human being with the same beliefs and the same belief system. And that is what I try and bring to the table. The whole person, the whole belief system. Not, I'm the CEO, therefore, there's now certain things that must fall in place. Sometimes you've got to be the CEO because you are talking to your shareholders or you're talking to the board and you've got to actually maintain that. But I think, for me, I worked 30 years very, very hard to get this job. And guess what happened that day? I started all over, right from the bottom, to prove myself all over again. My viewers, you never arrive. Never. Yeah. That day, you just start all over again to learn, to prove yourself, to make mistakes, and to give the best that you can. I mean, that is just how I look at it.
Absolutely right. And once again, we always say that our best work is always ahead of us. So you might have done great work, but it's all behind you.
And the day you deliver something, that for me, that becomes the benchmark for tomorrow.
Absolutely. It's, well,
this
that's my
amazing set of results, record, and guess what? Tomorrow you just start all over again.
Yeah.
That's how the market look at it. That's how your shareholders look at it. And then it brings me to the one thing that I am deeply, deeply passionate about, and that is client service. That unreasonable way in which we have to care for our clients is that as an organization, 16,000 people, few million clients, you're only ever as good as the last encounter your client had with you. You're only ever as good as how you made that client feel when he or she put that phone down.
Correct.
That's it. Yeah. It's an infinite game.
Yeah.
Leadership, being the CEO, life, success, career is an infinite game. There's no end goal. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You just start all over again.
I love that you've used those terms as you've been articulating so eloquently all of these journeys and all of these moments. There are so many things that aligns with, great works. And some of them, you're talking about this idea of knowing who you are and being really genuine
and
authentic, right?
People see through it.
Exactly, because people don't remember what you do,
how you make
but
them
they
feel.
will remember how you make them feel. And Will talks about it. You hear about it in very many.
Maya D'Angelo.
Everybody, talks about that. You talk about raindrop moments. It's a multitude of little things, the butterfly effect. It's little things that can have a big impact. Stephen Emar talks about that in Speed of Trust when you talk about how do you go about building trust. What I'm also hearing you say as you're giving lessons to other women is balancing character, who you are,
yes,
and competence. You can't just be a nice person.
Nope.
You've got to show the results.
Absolutely.
You cannot have people advocate for you if you have not produced the results. It's a near perfect balance of two currencies. It's relationship currency and performance currency. You can't have expected to be Jeanette Marais, CEO, Momentum Group, without having that balance, perfect balance of character, competence, relationships, currencies, and performance currency. You cannot have come up to this level without a maniacal focus on purpose. One of the things that I'm hearing you say as well is be purposeful about your purpose.
Yes.
Because when you are in an infinite game like the one you're talking about, the rules are unknown, the players are unknown, it's flexible, there's no
goal.
It's about running a business in perpetuity, right?
Yes.
That's what infinity is about. It's not about that's the end state. Yeah, it's a period.
And here I have a tiny little piece that I can influence. And then I've got to make sure that in perpetuity, I've left this place in a better place where it can actually grow and go from here. And often you find leaders that actually destroy. And you've got to come in and you've got to fix it first and whatever. But I'm only here for a finite few years in which you need to almost create something that could be infinite.
Correct. I often say to executives when I speak to them and say, so if there's a hole in the ground tomorrow and all of this disappears, what will you be remembered for?
Absolutely.
Because that is what makes for memorable encounters and talking about leaving a legacy. One of the things that I'd like to hear you talk about and share with the rest of our listeners, Jeanette, is your maniacal focus on purpose-driven organizations, purpose-driven leadership. When you unpacked the momentum strategy, the impact strategy, you spoke also about being purposeful about our purpose, were your words?
Yes.
Yeah, so how do you activate that in a 16,000 person organization?
Well, it started for me with actually my word for the year last year, and it's two words, but I allowed myself that, was actually purposeful impact. Because actually I think it's one thing is that purpose without impact is also kind of word sandblasted on a wall somewhere. Or purpose without impact on a personal level is something that I've written somewhere and but it means nothing. What is it? It is, for me, it is actually every single thing we do as leaders, as custodians of our client money, is actually about the impact that we have on them. The impact, the long-term impact we have on it. And I do have to share with you our group purpose. That is something that has energized and focused 16,000 people around something that has meaning. And it was difficult because we've got 9 very diverse different businesses in this group with different types of clients, different types of products, different types of markets. And our purpose is we build and protect our clients' financial dreams. Now, a dream is something that is far in the future. What do you do every single day to help build it, to help protect it? It's about your clients, but it's about something more personal. It's understanding what those dreams are and how you can help build and protect those over time. I cannot begin, I get goosebumps about the energy that is unleashed in an organization that heard me when I stood up the first time that I spoke to this group, and I said, if you ask me, I told it the board, if you ask me to be the CEO that drove this organization to deliver results, grow our profits, and increase our share price, and only that, I'm not the CEO for you. I will give you all 3 of that. Not I, we will give you those 3. but because we've got a purpose that we believe in, that get people out of bed in the morning, that becomes your absolute true North Star for when you need to make difficult decisions. Because if you do what's right for your client every single day and moment of your life, these other three will follow. And a year and a half in, it's exactly what's happening. We're focusing on this one, and those three are taking care of themselves. Not just naturally, not without any, also focus and so on. But if you do what's right for your clients, if you live your purpose, these other three things actually happen to just become easier. And there's many organizations in the world that have actually excelled because of purpose, not because they were just chasing these other three things. But I think in my leadership style, and it's maybe one of the things that I'm often quite misunderstood, I have been called fundamentally unreasonable many, many, many times in my life. And actually, in a book that I think we both love, Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, he actually talks about it, and he says that when someone calls you unreasonable, he didn't use the word fundamentally, but fundamentally is normally what they call me. Unreasonable, people use it to shut down the conversation. I have learned through the years that it's just that it scares them a little. And that being unreasonable is, I don't think if you're not unreasonable, fundamentally unreasonable, you'll ever change the world. People who accept the status quo will never change the world. You need to be fundamentally unreasonable to see a world that doesn't yet exist. And that is my purpose, to try and create that for this organization. Because it is possible to service 3.5 million clients in a way that make them feel that we care. And not because it's something we just put out there, because you can't really fake care. If you truly care about your client, if you truly care how you make them feel, if you truly care about whether the products you developed are the right products, not for profit, but for your client, profit will follow. I deeply believe that. And that is an energy that at the moment it feels like we're unleashing in this organization, where I hear more conversations about, but if we just change this, it will be better for our client. And then we go, wow, and look what's happening to our profits.
Correct. And Jeanette, would you say, when I think about the client being outside of an organization, I have a tendency of listening for, well, how are the people inside the organization being treated?
Yes.
Because there's often a correlation between how employees are being treated every day to how they would then treat their people and their clients, right? How are you able to get that kind of narrative ingrained in an organization the size of Momentum?
Yeah, so you know what? I mean, for me, it's quite easy. If you have a terrible situation at home, it's very hard to come to work and be bright and be happy. It's very hard to have a smile in your face when the phone rings and it's a client shouting at you, right? So now you need to take, and you've got to actually force multiply that into an organization. So how you treat your people, how you elevate them to be human beings with choice that you trust to make the right choices, actually plays a bigger role in whether we will ever be able to actually achieve our purpose. So we fundamentally believe in that. We really, really go out of our way and thinking about ways and practices in which we could make sure that our employees feel valued, that they feel that there's a value proposition that is about caring for them. I think COVID changed a lot in terms of just how organizations dealt with it. We were probably one of the only that said, you have choice about whether to be vaccinated or not. Here's all the facts about whether it's the right thing to do, but we will not force you. It's your choice. It's your choice about how you protect yourself, but if you make that choice, you still have a responsibility to people around you. Because you've got to actually then consider more around what's good for you, but also what's good for people around you. We are adults. And then
Right.
I just fundamentally believe that if you recruit and bring the right people with the right value system into your organization, I can tell you, and I've not made many big mistakes in the many years and the thousands of people that I recruited. I recruit for a value system first.
Yeah.
I think you can teach people anything.
Correct.
Of course, there's minimum qualifications that you often need, but I have said no to brilliant jerks
Yeah.
because they had the best CV in the whole world, but they were wrong for our organization. And I dream about the day when 16,000 people recruiting could say, great CV, but not our culture,
Yeah.
not our behaviors, and even culture. You know, we're busy now with developing a culture or changing our culture slightly, because what we say is, if it is about impactful purpose or purposeful impact, you can actually use it both ways. We have this impact strategy, which actually is quite ambitious. In fact, I was told unreasonably ambitious. What is your behaviors? Culture is such a word that everyone uses.
Yeah.
We call it behaviors. What is the set of behaviors that we recruit for, we reward for? And what are the behaviors that we do not tolerate? Because if the behaviors are right, it becomes force multipliers. Because if you behave in a certain way, I look at you and I go, wow.
Yes.
Or, I mean, it could be negative, right? But it becomes force multipliers.
Yeah.
And it's behaviors which is going to determine whether you're going to live your purpose and deliver on this, some call it crazy, a strategy that you have with targets that even the market says, look, we think they're overly ambitious.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's part of that whole fundamental thing.
Yeah.
I do not believe in under-promising and over-delivering. What is under-promise? It means I know I can do better, but now I'll go and just tone it down.
Play safe.
I'm actually lying to myself
Yeah.
because I know I can do better.
Yeah.
I believe in overpromise. What gets you out of bed in the morning? An audacious goal or one that says, we've achieved it already. We can hang, we don't
Yes.
worry. When do you get the smartest people to kind of wake up 3 o'clock in the morning and say, we need to make new plans, we need to be smarter, we need to be better than our competitors? It's when you set goals and targets that
Yeah.
people think are unachievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And can I say this? There is no joy greater for an organization to achieve something that they thought was impossible.
Absolutely.
There is nothing greater than that for an organization. And it's when those three things come together. What do we believe in? Why are we here on this earth? How are we going to do it? How are we going to behave? And then what is it that we need to deliver? When those three things come together and they start to be so intertwined that it's almost impossible to distinguish when you're talking about what, that is when the magic happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you use the word culture and you break that down, I see, and Will talks about it as well in his book, there's cult
Yes.
in culture.
Yes.
And that tells me a cult is a
A
shared
belief.
language,
Yeah.
a shared belief. There are norms, spoken, unspoken norms that we kind of know this is the direction in which we are going. One of the things that I hear other really great organizations do as they navigate towards great cultures is they design a leader as coach mindset.
Yes,
In
yes,
other
yes.
words, they move away from the title, like you said. So yes, the title it has its weight, it's, somewhere. But really, we define leadership as it's not a title. It's not a position. It's a choice.
And in fact, I'll add a word to that. We've actually brought it down and said leaders, managers are not inspectors. They are coaches. And it's exactly that. Because
Absolutely.
we're not here to kind of try and catch people out when they do things wrong.
Yes.
We're not the police.
Yeah.
You are here to help people learn from the mistakes.
Correct.
And I think it is something, and that is quite difficult.
Yeah.
People are afraid of making mistakes.
Yes.
People are afraid of being labeled that, they've made a mistake. And I think the way in which I am trying to establish it here is through the authenticity of just being a human being, but more than that, having the tough conversations and having them in a respectful manner where people know it's about the conversation, it's not about. I can tell you, my team, our executive committee, is a very different place to what it's ever been. There are no holy cows. There are no topics off the table. There are none off the table that says, Jeanette, you just said that, but you know what? I have a different opinion.
Yeah.
I expect my team to do that. My worst is when we have this colloquial conversation where there's groupthink and everyone just go, yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
That's when we don't think. That's when we don't challenge
And
ourselves.
don't grow.
And if you don't start that right from the top, when I talk to teams, you know, when people ask me to do these talks about culture or leadership or whatever it might be, is to not bring the CEO to that conversation, to bring Jeanette to that conversation.
Yeah.
Because people then look at you and they go, but there's something real about this. There's something about no topic or question is taboo.
Yeah.
Because if you can break that barrier, that there's no taboos,
Yeah.
suddenly it unleashes energy where people are no longer afraid to have their voice, to have an opinion.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you can open that up, it's another thing that Will says in the book, and now I'm probably going to misquote him, but it says that the people with all the power doesn't have the information, but the people with no power have all the information. That is actually the magic that is happening in this organization right now, is that we're breaking that down and we're bringing leadership right into having conversations with our actual clients.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do deep client immersions on processes and how we make them feel. Because leaders make decisions about processes, but they have no idea of the impact that it has on our clients, on the people who actually sit in our client service center and have to deal with those clients.
Yeah.
Go ask them.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to learn. So the person with the power can now make very different decisions. But if you don't break that down, we have a rule. Every leader has to go and sit and listen to calls.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
would you know what our clients need and want and how we make them feel if you've never listened to a client call? And I think that's when you start to say, break down, it's not a title.
Yeah.
It is actually just a job description, and there's certain things that you're accountable for.
Correct.
But other than that, titles are meaningless.
Absolutely.
Call me the chief happiness consultant here, or, officer if you want, because I think that is what this is about.
Exactly. And, this is why I say I love Will's work, because there's so much of alignment and, that front line that you're talking about, they have the information. When I think about the 4 disciplines of execution as an example, it is, what does front line know? What are they doing? What are they experiencing? Because only they can create those lead measures that's going to push on the lag in order for us to achieve those breakthrough results, right? But in the absence of that information, we sit up here thinking that we're all knowing just because we have a title is really inaccurate in the results that we're hoping to achieve. A lot of what we've been talking about hinges on when we drive inside of organizations. There's 4 things that we are doing. So we're developing leaders at every level. We're instilling habits of effectiveness. We build inclusive, high-trust cultures. And we provide really proven execution frameworks. But with all of that, the one thing that our work is designed to do is have every single person in an organization say, I feel like a valued member of a winning team doing meaningful work in an environment of trust.
Absolutely.
It's our number one goal.
It's our dream.
Okay, well, everything that we do is geared towards that. My question for you, Jeanette, and you can answer that as the CEO of Momentum or as Jeanette Marais. How do you activate that so that people can say with their hand on their heart, I feel like a valued member of a winning team doing meaningful work in an environment of trust. What do you do
Sure.
every day?
It's a higher grade question, you know. There's a lot more in that. So, personally, I show up. If I'm having this conversation with Chili downstairs who bring our coffee, and I chat to Chili, I see Chili, I am truly interested in him as a human being, what's going on in his life. And in that moment, I try and make Chili feel like he is the most important person for me on earth in that moment. And I found that you could be CEO-like, and I have an insane diary and an insane life. You know, I commute from Cape Town. My life actually is quite complex. But if I sit next to you on an aeroplane, if I meet you on the stairs, in that moment, it's me and you. Whether it is that it is a 10-person conversation that I'm having, I am overly prepared. I don't fly by the seat of my pants. Look, I mean, you don't prepare for everything, not for a conversation that you have casually with something or with someone. But I have learned that in that moment, the preciousness of it is to be truly present. So that's a very important, you know, and whether it is the person at the till in Woolworths, respect, that mutual respect and care, in that moment, that person is seen. They're truly seen, they're truly heard, they're truly important in your life. Yeah. That is one of the things that I try and live by. And you don't always get it right. Sometimes you're in a hurry somewhere and someone greets you and you don't see. And I've taught myself to stop and say, I'm sorry, I was rushing somewhere, you know, but let's have this moment. So I think that's one of the things, and I try and practice it. And I've often had people that have said to me, wow, the impression we had of you when we see you, you know, on TV or on stage, and this is there's a connectedness that who you are there is also who you are here. Yeah. But I often hear people say, but you're much nicer than I ever thought you are. Because I am tough. I am the one who's got to actually set the tough targets. I am the one who's actually got to make tough decisions every single day. And I wouldn't have been here if I wasn't tough, if I didn't overcome many, many obstacles in my life. So there is a toughness. There is that resilience that is in me that will overcome everything. But at the same time, there's a human being. And it's not a CEO. And I don't, you know, I'm often kind of embarrassed when they're like, you know, here she is, the CEO of the business. Like, that is just a title that someone have given me. But I'd rather be, you know, the leader, the person that is here because in this moment we all matter and we all matter equally. That's what I try and live myself. Now, to perpetuate that into a big organization is easier said than done. Because you don't control what happens in boardrooms. You don't always know where there are teams where there's toxic leadership. But what I have done, and I'm quite known for that, is making the hard, the tough decision. And when something is not working, address the problem. Do it fairly, do it respectfully, but sort it out. Because these things can fester. And it can actually poison an entire organization. How do you stand for excellence, but you tolerate someone in your team that is actually probably not the right person for the role they're in? And people look at you. They hear what you say, but they look at what you do. They look at how you act. They look at the way in which you handle these very, very tough situations. And I'm deeply aware that if I don't have the courage to do the right thing, how can I expect 16,000 other people to do the same? So there is a bit of a lead by example in there as well. And especially when it gets to the things that is quite a bit tougher.
And things that matter.
And things that matter, absolutely.
Jeanette, throughout our conversation, I heard you allude a lot to the idea of this whole person paradigm, that people come to us with warts and all. And I was reading, as I was preparing for our time together, I came across something that Will wrote, that he took guidance from a fellow mentor. And I want to just read that very quickly, and then I'll revert to you for a question around it. So it was this, he said, I can only be authentic and inspirational and restorative if I buy back the time to restore myself. This is not a passive pursuit, it's active.
Yep.
The things I can't control, mindfulness, diet, exercise, attitude, and whom I choose to spend my time with, those things takes priority over all others. So when I do raise my hand, I'm armed with the mental fortitude to make sure that my ambition doesn't undermine the clarity that got me all these killer opportunities in the first place. So a lot of what you have said in our time together sums up in that little statement. I've flagged it for you to share that page number if you've forgotten. Oh, I know you've read it 600 times already. As you think about that balance that you have to create to restore yourself, to buy back some of that time, what are some of your best practices? And I would like to, I'm very mindful of your time. I know your diary is so jam-packed. We are getting closer towards our close. What would your advice be around that balancing?
So I think the first thing is just figure out what makes you happy. You gotta also create and have happiness. And we're very sad if I say the only thing in life that makes me happy is to be the CEO of this group and do my job, right? Because it isn't. It absolutely isn't. So I don't have kids. I never had the privilege to have my own, and but at the point in time when we've done everything we could, and we realized and we needed to make peace with that, suddenly something happened in my life, and in my family, and a sister of mine lost her husband very tragically, and suddenly she had 3 children. She was completely lost, and I could step in as an aunt. And I mean, I made that my life mission. I have 11 unbelievable young adults now that I am the toughest but the best. They know 4 o'clock in the morning, no matter the problem, I can do the stuff that they'll never, or have conversations that they can never have with their parents. And not because I'm trying to be their parents. And, I'm so ever thankful that my brother and sisters have invited me in to be such an integral part of their kids' lives. I have one living in every home I have, and I take care of them, and I help them with, studies, whatever it is. So I have that wholeness that every single day of my life, I deal with one of them, and I can see life through their eyes. I can help them understand, the toughness that's ahead of them in their careers and whatever. I find immense fulfillment in that. I am very, very close to my family, my siblings, my parents, whom I'm, so incredibly lucky to still have both of them, and with Johan. But again, almost in that kind of present sense, I've learned that I have a 1.5, if I'm lucky, 2-day-a-week marriage. I only see Johan Friday night, Saturday, and 3/4 of Sunday. That's it. When I'm there, I do not work, not a piece, an inch of work. And you know what I had to overcome to be able to do that? My own guilt. But I have to do it because I love him. I want to have a healthy marriage. And if I don't invest my time being present there with him in those 2.5 days, it won't work. Correct. And I'm not willing to offer that up. That is not a sacrifice I'm willing to make. So therefore, I have stopped working completely when I'm on the farm with Johan. And you know what it does? We go for the longest walks, the longest talks. We sleep, we exercise, we do fantastic things together. And when I get back home, my other home in Cape Town on a Sunday night, and momentum takes over, I am rejuvenated. I've got more energy than anyone else can have. More energy than I've ever had the years that I had him with me all the time, but I was kind of not present on my phone. Yeah. So that's a choice I made, and I live by it. I do not compromise on it. That's one thing. The other one is exercise. So 30 years ago, when my life started here and I was traveling and so on, I realized, well, I'll be totally overweight and horrible and all of that and unhealthy unless I get something that I can fit into my lifestyle.
Yes.
I bought a pair of running shoes and I started running. So I've done many, many marathons, ultra marathons, trail marathons, not any longer because right now I'm literally just running to stay fit and to keep my health. But, there was a point in my life when I can almost say, running defined me in that sense. It's no longer, I just don't have the time to do that properly anymore. But 3-4 times, I do it at odd times. I made a choice that I wanted to live in an estate that is so safe that if I go for a run at 10 at night, it doesn't matter, I'll be safe. I do it. I have a little rebounder, which, by the way, I think is the best form of exercise in the whole world, which is a little trampoline, actually. And I can do that anytime, day or night. So exercise is essential. It gets rid of my stress. I feel like a new person. It gets my brain to work. And it's total me time. Running actually for me is time with my friends because I never see my friends. So I have a group of friends that I run with. Now, where else can you have 3-4 hours a day? I mean, a week running with your friends, talking about your husbands and, life.
Yes.
And no one cares about talking at work to me because none of them is in the industry. So we literally just connect as people. So I've tried to say with little time, how can you bring the things that matter together with more meaning? Nice. So I'm fulfilled as far as my friendships go because I get to spend time. I'm fulfilled because I feel good, I'm fit. I need that to stay healthy. I never get sick. I don't even have a GP because I just never get sick because I look after myself. Not so great on diet. I'm very bad on food. I'm very bad on nutrition. I kind of eat once a day whatever's in front of me, and it's just one of the things I do. It's just not something that I care to spend much time on, but I try and be as healthy as I can. And then when I'm at work, I'm here. I'm here 24 hours, 18 hours a day, I suppose. Sleep is very important, I know, but during the week, I don't get enough of it. I try and make up on weekends and so forth. But I try and lead it as healthy and as balanced as I can. But I've learned to combine the things that make me happy, that get my tank full.
Yeah.
Because when my tank is full, I can pour it all out. You see it on my face, you see it in my smile, you see it in my energy levels. Nice. And that's how I try and do it.
Well, that is amazing advice for anybody that has a really high-powered job like you do, to be able to keep the things that matter at the center: friends, exercise, diet. So, really those things that matter. Jeanette, what an absolute privilege to be allowed to step into your life for a few moments. And it has really been an amazing conversation that we've had. And I'm really hoping that people that's listening to this podcast is going to take away from this things that they can use in their leadership. Be authentic. Be true to who you are. Say no when it matters, and yes when it matters. Balance all of your priorities in terms of your relationship currency as well as performance currency. Don't expect people to give you the job just because you're there. Show your part by demonstrating your capability.
Yes.
A near perfect balance of character and competence that's authentic. And Jeanette, you emulate all of that, which I've just said. And I want to thank you for your time to be with us this morning. Jeanette, it has been so amazing. I wonder whether you could just give us a few seconds, a parting shot for our listeners on this episode 5.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Marlinie. So much was said. I think maybe two things is, I believe that true leadership is when you can develop the ability to balance the heart, and it's the heart, this heart, with the other heart, the toughness. Because actually, as a leader, you need to learn to truly care. I think that's when you take people with you. But that doesn't mean that you can't have the tough conversations, the real conversations. And I think it's often people struggle. People think that it's mutually exclusive and you can be the one or you could be the other. So maybe as a leadership parting shot, is find that way in which you can actually, be both. Then to young people, kind of early on in their careers, 2 things. Find your voice, your magic, the one thing that you stand for. And a last thought to our, all our female, our women, leaders and listeners is always wear good shoes.
Always wear good shoes. Thank you. I think that is the one thing that I'm going to leave with as well. Always wear good shoes. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Jeanette. And hopefully we'll be connecting soon again.
I hope so.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.